I've made a lot of videos on this channel, and over time, I've realized that I tend to follow a certain pattern for a few videos, get bored with it, then move on. Most of them are easy to see, from Hollow Knight memes to wacky game reviews to genre comparisons, but with my last few videos, the pattern isn't as easy to see. After reflecting on them though, I realized that they were different topics, but they revolved around the same concept. The concept of how we play games, whether it be as an experience or as a distraction. In my Hollow Knight video, I described how I was initially immersed in the world of the game, while the gameplay fostered this relationship. Yet, as time went on and I explored everything there was to explore and achieved everything there was to achieve, the game became less of an experience and more of a way to distract me from what was going on around me. In my Celeste video, I expanded on this idea of a distraction. I was never really immersed in the game itself, and only really played it for the gameplay, just like I did playing Hollow Knight after doing everything. When explaining Celeste, I went more into detail about why the game works as well as it does as a distraction gameplay-wise, and the reasons why I would play a game without experiencing it. Though, I did end the video by saying that I wanted an experience, and I found this with Elden Ring. In my Elden Ring video, I outlined my experience with the game, especially focusing on how I enjoyed the experience of exploring a whole new world for the first time in a very long while. With those 3 videos out of the way, I could have just left it at that. I had already explained, or at least left it up to an assumption, what makes a game a distraction or an experience. Celeste was a distraction because it was just a series of rooms with a strong gameplay focus and a story that was only present in small portions of each level. While Elden Ring was an experience because it was an open world full of deep lore, things to experiment with, and places to explore. But this isn't really doing the topic justice, even at the level of the game. So, could Elden Ring be a distraction? If the answer is no, then we have a clear-cut answer to what makes a distraction or an experience. All we have to do is look at the qualities of the game. Though, if the answer isn't no, then it must be more complicated. Sadly for us, the answer to the question is yes. Elden Ring can be a distraction. Not everyone will get immersed playing Elden Ring. I could definitely see myself just playing the game to cool off by fighting some cool enemies. I've done the same with games that others consider experiences. And because of this, there has to be another variable besides taste and game design that affects whether one plays a game as a distraction or experience. To explore what this variable could be, we first have to take a look at stress, and time, and gaming. Stress is simply a physical or mental response to physical or mental pressure. Though in this video, our main focus is on mental stress. Stress itself isn't a bad thing. It can make you react to a dangerous situation when you need to. But in the current world, stress is everywhere. And this makes sense in a system which uses the stress of not wanting to starve, or at the very least not wanting to lose a standard of living, as a motivator for work. This and other factors have led to 73% of people in the US saying that stress affects their mental health. Even so, stress isn't a monolith. In my personal experience, stress can come at a few different intensities. First being low stress. This is the ideal place to be, a set point of sorts. When I say low stress, I don't mean a little stress all the time, I just mean a low amount of stress in general. Because there will always be stresses in life, whether it be work or home life or anything else. This is just a healthy level of stress, which keeps you on track when you need it and doesn't last a long period of time. An example of this from my own life would be the summer after I graduated high school. During this time, I still had duties and things that I had to do, but they weren't stressful. There was no expectations that I couldn't meet or consequences for not getting something right for the first time. There was just things to do for me and those around me. Another instance of a low stress scenario could be a weekend where you were free from pressure from something above you and had time to focus on yourself or your community. With these examples, I don't mean to imply that all possible work isn't low stress. It definitely can be. But it's the pressure from above that I mentioned that creates a different type of stress: prolonged stress. This is stress that lasts for a few hours, but doesn't carry over from one day to the next. With prolonged stress, you're in a certain stressful situation for a period of time each day, though when that period ends, you're free to use the rest of your hours any way you want. You could do a hobby or hang out with friends, all stuff you could do more of with low stress. For me, I was in this position with my job over the summer. I would work 8 hours a day, maybe a few more, then come home exhausted and lay down on the couch for an hour or two to recharge. After that though, I could work on videos, play games, and go out with friends. And don't get me wrong, I did like the job, but that didn't take away from the fact that there was stress involved. This type of stress isn't ideal, however, it's not the worst either. Sustained stress is when the pressure that's causing prolonged stress starts to bleed into the rest of your time. At any moment, something that you have to do is on your mind. There's always a thing to do, and never a moment away. This could last from a few days to a few months to years, and it could even be something that you enjoy doing. YouTubers talk about burning out all the time. Most of them, like me, love making videos, but YouTube, through the algorithm, pressures them into making more content, and without anything to balance this out with, it could easily lead to long periods of sustained stress. In my own life, I've experienced sustained stress through college. When I'm not in class, there's pretty much always a paper to write, homework to complete, an exam to study for, or a project to work on. The free weekends that I had before turn into more homework time, and the things I do outside of school are distractions from it, even if some of them are hard work themselves. All of this can push hobbies and friends to the back burner. There just isn't as much time as you would want. These three categories make up the different ways that stress can be experienced. Stress is just one emotion though, so what makes it so important? Well, when playing a game, you're obviously going to experience it differently if you're happy as opposed to being sad, but the difference lies in that stress, its effects on your brain, and on your time are always present. This is why I believe that stress can have such a large impact on the way we experience different games. With low stress comes more time to spend playing. Putting consecutive hours into a game can really help entrench you into an experience. It takes a while to get into that flow state, but once you're there, you're there. When I played Elden Ring in my break during the late summer, I first tried to play it in small chunks, say about an hour apiece. As I did this, I realized that I found it harder and harder to remember what I was doing beforehand, and started to get lost more. So to counter this, I played for longer each time. This way, I could get what I wanted to done, and put myself in a good position for the next time around. This was especially useful for remembering NPC quests. Also, in these periods of low stress, I didn't need much of a distraction to keep my mind off things. There wasn't much to keep my mind off of, so it was free to add an experience to its duties. With prolonged stress though, the same amount of time isn't there. It's not easy to find a few free hours each day when most of your hours are already being eaten up. This can cause the time periods between play sessions to increase, therefore increasing the chance that you'll forget details about the game which you would have remembered otherwise. It's sort of a negative feedback cycle. This happens most often to me when I'm reading books. I like to read at night before I go to sleep. It's a habit I've had since I was a kid. But sometimes I come home exhausted and can't get myself to read before letting myself sleep. When this happens, it doesn't just affect the amount I read that one night, it also affects the night after that. If it's been 2 days since I've read, I'm going to forget some of the content, and I'm also going to be less invested in the book than I was before, so it would take more energy to get back into it. Over a few days, this effect can multiply until I either get back into it or start a new book altogether. For me, a similar phenomenon occurs with games. If I forget something about the story, I'm not going to want to play it as much, and then this compounds in on itself until I don't really want to play at all. This, however, is not to say that experiencing a game with prolonged stress is impossible. This stress won't stop you from getting at a game you're really into. Sustained stress is a bit different. It has the same problems with time that prolonged stress does, but it adds a mental aspect. When I'm stressed all the time, I find it incredibly hard to appreciate the slow parts of games that help build the world, the scenery, environments, cutscenes, dialogue. Drops in pacing cause the stress that the game was holding back to come flooding in, breaking the immersion that the game could provide. This is why I tend to play distractions in times like this. The game doesn't change its pace that much, and because of this, the level of investment is low. And because the level of investment is low, I can also put on a video essay to almost eliminate the chance of a thought occurring. Even if the game is great and never dips in quality, constant stress can make it hard to take in something new and exciting in an enjoyable way. Because of this, time and stress can be some of the most significant factors in whether I experience a game or play it as a distraction. To prove this to myself, I recently tried playing Disco Elysium. When I started, I was in a period of sustained stress, and to be honest, I did feel it the whole time when I first played the game. But it was playable. Though when I died after about 40 minutes and realized that I hadn't saved it all, I just couldn't get myself to start again. I eventually made up my progress and tried to progress, but again, I just couldn't do it. It was kinda sad. I really did want to play that game, but a week later, I found myself, for the first time in a while, in a position of low stress, and played Disco Elysium for about 2.5 hours straight. It was amazing, and I do think I'll love this game, though I might need to wait for a better time before I dive in headfirst. With all this said, stress affects different people in different ways. More stress could make you get even more into a game than you would have before, but this is just my experience. And I wish I had a solution to get out of stressful situations, but I can't say that I do. There are of course ways to mitigate the stress you feel, and I do suggest that you go and seek out solutions that you think can be useful to yourself. However, the pressures you feel from very real things in life are still going to exist. I'll leave with some final, albeit obvious advice. Do what you can with what you have, and also try to build something better. Thanks for watching, guys. This topic was a bit deeper than normal, but I really hope that you got something from it. Stress is everywhere, like I said, and man, do I have a lot to do. After this video, I'm not super sure where I want to go with the channel, so suggestions in the comments are really appreciated. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel, and I'll see you next video. Peace.